Can you tell us a little bit about Bhumandala, about this earthly realm? Where do we live? Do we live on a globe, or do we live in a kind of some kind of, planetary system, which is more like, I don't know, flat?
Yeah, well, it's a very interesting question. Um, we have to understand some things about the Vedic cosmology in order to really answer that question. Uh, One is that beings at different levels of the Vedic cosmos have different levels of sense perception. So that's something that has to be considered. And we also have to consider that the Vedic cosmos, the material universe that we exist in, is a consciousness based phenomenon. So that means when we look at the universe, we shouldn't see it as a bunch of stone balls floating in a void with some of them on fire, like to be stars. It's more like a virtual reality system that we're participating in. So, what you perceive on one level of this consciousness based virtual reality universe that we exist in, which is sometimes called the dream of Mahavishnu, to realize it shouldn't be seen mechanistically. Now, many people involved in uh, web design and things like that have deal with, say, websites, for example, that if you go to the home page, you see certain things. To see additional things, you have to register or go through a paywall, pay something. Then you get to see the same thing in more detail or from another perspective, even, or some there are other things like that. So according to our sensory capacities, we can see things in different ways. So in the Vedic culture, people were interested in the sky, in the stars, the planets, the moon, the earth, because they needed to know certain things astronomically in order to carry out their different activities. You know, when to hold a certain festival, when certain activities were to be started or stopped. They needed an advanced knowledge of uh, what we could call celestial mechanics. So, for that purpose, they had the Jyotish Shastras, like Surya Siddhanta, which describe the visible Earth in terms of observational astronomy using our present set of senses. Of course, sometimes we fail to appreciate how little we know about the night sky because most of us live in cities or urban environments where there's a lot of light pollution and we don't see the stars at
Yes.
night, or maybe only a few. But and if you're out in the countryside, you can just be amazed at what's up there in the sky. And in Vedic times, people people were very much in touch with the sky. So by looking at that astronomical information, which was given in the, as I said, the Jyotish Shastras, the astronomical texts, they had a picture of the night sky and the earth very much like that of modern science, which again is dealing with what they can observe with their present senses and the extensions of it, like telescopes and things like that. But so the in the Jyotish Shastras, the earth is presented as a globe. So, of course, we don't see that. I mean, we don't experience the earth as a globe directly, but there are things that can be noticed about it that would lead us to infer that. But keeping the idea that what we're able to perceive depends upon our sensory capabilities. You know, like there are insects that can perceive, that can see ultraviolet and infrared light. We don't see it. We don't
Mm-hmm.
see that. Our visual experience is limited to a fragment of the total light spectrum. Same with hearing. We, there are animals like dogs that can hear sounds that are beyond the range of human hearing. So the ability to perceive things as they really are depends upon our sensory capacities. And even then, we're not really seeing things as they are. We're seeing them as the sensory inputs get converted into uh, signals, electronic signals that are transmitted to the brain through the different nerves, like the optic nerve from the eye. And then the images get processed in the brain. So even if we're directly looking at something, we're not necessarily seeing it as it really is. We're seeing it as it's been transmitted through our senses into the brain. So, but on that level of perception, the Vedic Jyotish Shastras describe the earth as a globe about the same size as calculated by modern science. Now, but that's not a complete picture of reality. If we were able to expand our sensory perceptions and correct for the different processing of sensory perception signals in the brain. I'm saying the brain, but in the Vedic cosmology, there's a subtle mind element around which all the subtle senses are grouped. And I believe it's the mind that performs the integrating function where we take sound and visual impressions, and it's all one display in one, all the sensory inputs, touch, taste, sound, vision, they're all integrated into a unified display. But in any case, with that higher perception, the same thing that appears as a globe may appear as a set of ring islands and oceans, as described in the fifth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's giving us, and the purpose of that description is to help us understand our place in a consciousness-based universe where there is movement of conscious selves from one level to another. And the perception, the level of perception required to actually perceive things in that way would be something that we don't have direct access to now. So we're getting a description from the Srimad Bhagavatam, from a source that is able to perceive that reality and is communicating it to us. But even that description, which appears to be contradictory, is it can be seen. I mean, we use both flat maps and a globe to depict the Earth. I have on my wall here a map of the world, paper map, and I could also have a globe. And what's on the flat surface is a projection of what's on the globe onto a flat surface, a projection from a three-dimensional object to a two-dimensional surface. So, so the flat depiction of the Earth is part of one of the ring islands, actually the central islands called Jambudweep. The Earth of our experience is part of that central island. And the difference between the flat picture of the Earth given in the Puranas, like the Bhagavad Purana, and the Jyotish Shastras could be seen as one being a projection of the other from their different dimensional levels. So, yeah, I was just thinking of the example of, say, somebody who knows computer code, machine language. They could uh, they could look at some code and they say, okay, that code, that set of symbols is representing a red ball on a computer screen. And then, so that red ball exists in the form of some, if it's printed on paper, some symbols on a printed out piece of paper. An expert person could see, oh, that's actually a red ball. And if you go inside the computer to the central processing unit, that set of symbols will be represented as open and close gates on a computer chip. Now, if somebody really understood the computer chip, they would be able to look at the configuration of zeros and ones basically, that those open and close gates and the circuitry of a chip represent a red ball. Or one could look at the computer screen and see, oh, that's a red ball, or and understand it's a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional red ball. So what is it? Is it the arrangement of open and closed gates and the computer chip? Is it the zeros and ones of basic computer language? Is it the set of symbols in a particular computer language? Is it so our kind of picture of the cosmos is like that, according to our intelligence and our sensory capacities, we may perceive things in different ways. Another example that I sometimes give is that astronomers may be looking at a certain part of the sky, and with an optical telescope on the Earth, one looks at a certain part of the sky, sees nothing there. But somebody using an X-ray telescope will say, wow, there's an amazing source of X-rays in that piece of sky. And the astronomer using the optical telescope may say, well, I don't see anything there. And the other astronomer will say, well, of course not. You're using the optical telescope. You have to use a different type of telescope, the X-ray telescope. And the other astronomer can say, no, no, no. If I don't see it on my telescope, it doesn't exist. So in a consciousness-based universe, everything is going to depend upon one's level of sense perception. So just to summarize again, the Jyotish Shastras, like the Surya Siddhanta, present the earth as a globe, just as modern astronomy does. But the Bhagavad Purana presents a different view of things from the basis of a consciousness-based universe and understanding our position in it relative to other parts of the cosmos. Like parts, Jambudvip, which is where the earth of our experience is situated, is only one of 9 parts of Jambudvip. The other parts are inhabited by conscious selves that have come down from higher material planets to this level of reality. And so the purpose of the Srimad Bhagavatam and its description of Bhumandala is different from the purpose of the Surya Siddhanta and its depiction on a globe Earth. Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, was once asked, is the Earth flat or a globe? He said both.
Very good answer.
Yeah, which is basically my answer. He put it very simply. I put it
Yes.
in a more complicated way. But that there are different perceptions of the same thing for different
Yes.
purposes. And there's some overlap between them. some of the movements of the stars and sun and earth as recorded in the Puranas, like the Bhagavad Purana or Srimad Bhagavatam, actually match up with the observations given in the Jyotish Shastras like Surya Siddhanta and modern astronomy.